So today we are talking about ensuring that teacher-made materials are accessible. So if this is your first time joining, my name is Shelby Kapler. I coordinate our Accessible Educational Materials project here at the Wyoming Institute for Disabilities, and work with the Wyoming Assistive Technology resources as well. So you can reach me directly at 307-766-5770 or on my email at skapple1@uwyo.edu. So this presentation is going to build off of some of the previous presentations if you've been able to join into those. If not, that's okay. There's still plenty of information that you can use without having had those previous presentations. So today we are going to talk about how to use the Microsoft Accessibility Checker and what kinds of things it can help you with. I'm going to share some other resources. One is the WebAIM Color Contrast Checker. I hope that you'll be able to identify at least 2 ways that artificial intelligence, or AI, can support teachers in creating accessible materials, and also hope that you'll be able to recognize when a scanned document is not accessible. So with that, we will jump straight in, talking about the Microsoft Accessibility Checker. So in our previous presentation, if you weren't able to attend, it is recorded and saved on the Accessible Educational Materials webpage. But we talked about how to ensure that materials and documents are being created accessibly. We talked about Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel, and Word, and how to make those documents accessible. So in this presentation, we'll talk a little bit more about how to use the accessibility checker, which is built into each of those tools. So it's located under the Review tab toward the top of your platform. And then it's this little icon that says Check Accessibility. And so it's going to bring up a few different accessibility options. It will identify errors, which is content that is not accessible and definitely needs to be fixed in order for the user to be able to access that material. Then it will show warnings as well. So warnings are content that's mostly accessible or more or less accessible, but there are ways that it could be made better to be more clear or easier to access. Then it also provides tips, which content that is technically accessible, but again, there are ways to improve and just make it a little bit more reader friendly and more usable. The accessibility checker also gives explanations about why the content isn't accessible and gives step-by-step instructions on how to fix it. So with that, we are going to practice. So again, if you were able to attend the last presentation, hopefully you remembered some of the different things that we look for when we're creating accessible documents. If not, that's fine. Take a look at this document, and I'll give you guys a few seconds to kind of look through it. Think to yourself what areas could be improved, and feel free as well to throw in the chat if you see any glaring errors or anything that you think should be improved. So there is a title at the top of this page, then there's a short paragraph with a couple lines of text, then there's several spaces, and then a picture underneath. To the right of that picture, there is a text box with some text in it that's kind of tilted slightly. And then underneath the picture looks like a list with tabs in for different colors. Okay, I think we can look at the next slide. So this is what the accessibility checker would look like. Uh,
Shelby, there's a couple of comments in the box. I think the title is a poor choice of color, Penelope said. And Alana said, honestly, I think it could use a larger words and more space.
great. Yeah, really great observations. So when you bring up the accessibility checker, it'll pop up on the right-hand side of your screen. Again, it'll show those errors, warnings, and this one doesn't have any tips. So the errors here, it identifies that this document has missing alt text, and then it tells you exactly where. So the missing alt text is in picture 3. In this case, there's only one picture in the document, so we know that it's this picture of the tulips is picture 3. If we had multiple pictures and we didn't know which one was picture 3, we can actually click on picture 3, it would highlight it and identify which picture is missing the alt text. Once you fix that issue, then the um, error will go away. So it's kind of like a checkbox as you go. The other error here is that there's an image or object not in line, which is text box 4. Again, there's only one text box, so we know which one it is. From last week, if you remember, we said that text boxes are not accessible in order for text to be read by by a screen reader. And it must be in line with the text. It can't be free floating like this text box is. So if we wanted to remedy that, we could use a table with a single row and column, and it would look just the same, but the screen reader would be able to identify that as content on the screen and read it. The warnings here, so there are repeated blank characters. It says that there are 5 characters that are repeated in blank. When we click on that in the document to the left-hand side underneath that first paragraph of text, that's where it's highlighted that there's those 5 blank characters. So that's what's highlighted here. If we look underneath, it describes why fix it. And it says that screen readers can read blank characters as blank, which can be very irritating, especially if there are multiple blank characters. So that's exactly right. It would read blank, 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 blank photo. Um, and so how to fix it, it tells you exactly how to use the formatting tools. You can go in, you can right click, hit paragraph, and then you have several different spacing options there. The last warning here is that there's hard to read text contrast. It says Dutch tulips, which is the title. So again, yeah, that pale pink text or font is not very readable on the white. Um, so overall, the accessibility checker is a great tool. There are some things that it does not pick up on. For example, this list is not formatted as a proper list using either bullets or numbers. It's just tabbed in and indented. So someone using a screen reader would not recognize this as a list, which could be a little bit more tricky for that individual. So I think that this Microsoft Accessibility Checker overall does really well. It helps to identify things both that are noticeable, like you guys picked up on the color on the title and the size of the font, but then it also picks up on things that we cannot see. For example, the missing alt text in that picture. So really good way to just double check over your documents and ensure that everything is good to go when you've created a document and are getting ready to send it out to students or clients or whoever you may be sending a document to. So next I want to talk a little bit about the color contrast checker. So just like on the previous slide, we had that pale pink text on the white background. That was incredibly difficult to read. So this is a really great tool. WebAIM is a good company for accessibility practices, especially in terms of web content. So there are web content accessibility guidelines, or the WCAG, and there are a couple different levels. So there's WCAG level AA, which is kind of a basic baseline. It is readable, it does meet those standards. But then there's also the WCAG AAA, which is a much better, a lot higher standard, and it ensures that it is completely accessible and easy to use. Um, so while these are guidelines for a website, it can be applied obviously to any context. So if you're putting together a PowerPoint or Word document, this is a great way to check that the contrast that you're using will be readable to most users. So for normal text, around a 12-point font, you want a ratio of 4.5 to 1, but that lowers a little bit if you have large text. So anything above probably like a 16-point font, or if you bold the text, those can be around a ratio of 3.1 or 3 to 1. So when you pull up the WebAIM accessibility checker, I've got a screenshot here on the left-hand side. You'll have a foreground, which is probably your text color, and it also has a background color. If you are in the web design or graphic design world, you might know what a hex code is, and it's just an alphanumeric code that identifies a specific color. If you know what those are, great, you can use those. If you don't, like me, you can use the color picker. So you can choose your color from a drop-down menu. So on the lower right-hand side of this slide, there's two screenshots there. If you choose the drop-down menu, you can choose the colors that you're using. If you select Show Colors, it'll bring up the full color wheel. And then you can either choose the color if you know what it is, or you can use this little eyedropper tool, which will allow you to choose any color on your screen. So you can go and choose the exact color that you're using in order to compare the foreground to the background color. And then again, this tool will show you whether or not your text and background colors pass those WCAG standards, and if they pass the AA and or the AAA. So in this case, my blue text on a pink background does pass at the basic WCAG AA level for normal text, but it does not pass the AAA standards. However, it does pass both AA and AAA for large text. And then the ratios will stay the same if you swap background for some foreground. All right, so moving on, I want to talk a little bit about AI. So artificial intelligence is also a really great tool for educators to use. If you're using AI, go ahead and throw in the chat how you're using it or if you've used it before. So real quick, just some of the most common AI tools. You've probably heard of ChatGPT by OpenAI. So ChatGPT version 3.5 is a free version, but it only offers text inputs and responses. If you upgrade to ChatGPT 4.0, it is $20 a month, but you get a lot of additional features built in. Gemini AI is by Google. It also has a free basic version or about $20 a month for those advanced features. Lastly, Copilot is Microsoft's AI. This does require Microsoft 365 plan, but if you've got that through your school or your district, then you should have access to it. So if you have not used AI before, or like a tool like ChatGPT, it's not quite the same as using Google or using a search engine like that. You will give it a prompt, so you can ask a question or you can give a directive, and that prompt will create the response. You can also provide in sequential prompts, so you can build off the previous prompts that you've entered, and the AI will continue to regenerate responses. And also, you can input custom prompts. So, for example, if you were looking for examples of active versus passive voice, it might come up with an example that says the chef cooked the meal versus the meal was cooked by the chef. If you didn't like that example, you could ask it to regenerate a response using a dog theme. So then maybe it would say the boy threw the ball for the dog rather than the ball was thrown by the boy for the dog. You can also get really creative here. So if you didn't like those examples or you still wanted different ones, you could ask it to use formal language, use an excited tone, use a sad tone, write it in pirate speech or Shakespearean language. And it's really creative and customizable, so it can help to generate some examples and things there. So a few different ways that you could use accessibility with your documents and creating materials in the classroom. You can ask ChatGPT or other AI to rewrite text for different reading levels. So for example, if you have a passage that's at a 10th grade reading level, but you have a student who needs it at a 6th grade reading level, you could copy and paste it into the text box with the AI and ask it to regenerate or to simplify the text. You can also have it help you to write concise instructions so that you're ensuring that your students are getting clear instructions. If you have the more advanced version of an AI, you will be able to insert pictures and images and tables and things. So you can ask the AI to interpret those tables or charts, graphs, or complex images, and they can help to write descriptions. So, like we talked about, it's important to include alternative text on any images that you include in your documents, in your materials, and handouts for students. But sometimes, if you provide a diagram or a chart, those can be really difficult to describe and to know how to describe. So AI is a great use uh, of that, how to describe those images for students. Um,
Shelby,
yes,
Billy wrote, you asked about AI uses. Shelby, I use AI for some design, Canva, Adobe Express, like for posters and social media posts, and Chat GPT for editing text. And Penelope asked, how do you use GPT for editing text?
great. Yeah, those are great comments. Thanks, Billy, for sharing. Good to hear that you're using it. Um, and Penelope, for to use ChatGPT to edit text, basically you can copy and paste in, let's say, a paragraph into the prompt box and then ask it to do whatever it is that you would want to do. So if you have an email and you want to make it a little bit less aggressive, for example, you could put that email in with that prompt, and then it will take your words along with its other AI learning and then regenerate that in a more appropriate way. Does that make sense?
She said, awesome, thanks.
Great. Yeah, so a couple other uses of AI. It can generate specific images or content. So if you are teaching around a certain topic and you want to come up with images for your worksheets and handouts, again, you can give AI a prompt. Maybe you want an image about a dinosaur. So you can actually have the AI generate images around a certain dinosaur or create your own character. Again, that's in the more advanced options, but it is something that's available. Additionally, AI can help you to write lesson plans and create relevant examples for those lesson plans. So lots of great applications for AI. And then next, I want to talk just a little bit about scanned documents. So if you are producing materials for your students, maybe you're scanning pages out of the textbook and providing it digitally, that's great. I think having digital options for students is very beneficial, and it's also falls within the universal design for learning principles for providing multiple means for students to access those materials. However, we do want to ensure that when we are scanning materials, that they are a good scan. So on the screenshot here, I have an image of a scanned book page. It's got shadows on different parts of the page, a little bit darker. It's kind of blurry. And there's also some notes and highlighting and things in the margins here. So um, this is similar to some of the textbooks and scanned textbooks that I received in my higher education classes. I'm not sure how often this happens in K through 12 settings, but just in case, just paying attention to how your scans are being created. If scans are scanned as PDFs, JPEGs, PNGs, that means that they are images, and these are not going to be accessible most of the time. So you need to make sure that you're using optical character recognition or OCR, which will allow a computer or a screen reader to recognize the text within the image and will make it readable to someone with a screen reader. So optical character recognition is available on most printers, scanners, copiers, especially the larger, more commercial ones that you'll find in your production rooms. But I think a lot of times the smaller desktop printers, scanners, copiers will have that OCR option as well. A lot of times it's just a matter of looking through the settings. I don't have an exact way on how to do this because everyone is a little bit different. But you can look through your settings, and there's usually a checkbox that you need to select for OCR. And that will help students who use other types of assistive technology to be able to access and read that text. If you don't have access to a specific scanner, there are apps available that will convert text like from images into readable text. There's several different scanner options. There's apps, and then there's software programs like Adobe Acrobat can be used to convert PDFs as well. So not only creating the documents themselves to be accessible, but also ensuring that the documents that we already have can be converted into an accessible format. So lastly, I just have a few other kind of reminders and tips to think about. Um, so remember those accessible document best practices that we talked about in a previous session. So ensuring that the font that you're using is readable, it's a reasonable size, your color contrast, your spacing, your alt text, all of those fun things. Remember that it's easier to start with an accessible document. So as you create it with accessibility in mind, that's much easier than going back to remediate a poorly designed document. Best practice is to share handouts in advance with students so that they have the opportunity to kind of look through and familiarize themselves with the content. And also using flexible formats. So maybe instead of handing out a PDF, maybe hand out a Word document where students can manipulate the text as they need it. If they want to make it larger, if they want to change the color, making it a little bit more customizable for each individual. Sometimes it can be helpful to use more than one means to emphasize text. So for example, maybe using bold and color, and you don't typically want to use just color alone in the event that someone may be colorblind. Also, when designing documents for students or really for anyone, consider the number and the content of images. I know that a lot of times in elementary schools, there's handouts passed out with a lot of fun images and visuals. So just kind of keep in mind the visual load, and that can be a lot sometimes. Think about whether or not those images are decorative, are they intended just for fun, or are they actually informative and helpful and relevant to the topic. And also considering activities that are appropriate for all students. So if you've got maybe a matching game or a word bank or a crossword or something, is this going to be easy for students to do with low vision? If students have lower or slower cognition, are they going to be able to follow along and participate in these activities? Similarly, if a student has poor dexterity, how are they going to be able to participate equally? So just, yeah, really keeping accessibility in mind in everything that we're doing and creating. And so that about sums up the presentation for today. Just a few last minute reminders. Again, we've got another survey, so if you wouldn't mind filling that out, those have been really helpful for us. If you're interested in signing up for our monthly dispatch email newsletter, it comes out just once a month, and it's got information on some of our different trainings and tools available. Um, we offer certificates of attendance. If anyone's interested, just send us an email and let us know that you would like one. And the next and final training will be on December 10th at 3:30 p.m. We'll be talking about accessibility in project-based learning.